Brian, thank you. This just in, less than an hour ago, the Maine Supreme Judicial Court has ruled with the Secretary of State and lower courts that the Protect Girls Sports in Maine initiative does not have enough valid signatures to qualify for the November ballot. The Secretary of State's office was sued by 3 Mainers, citing that the Protect Girls Sports initiative did not properly collect enough valid signatures to make it on the ballot this fall. After reviewing signatures and hearing oral arguments back in May, the Secretary of State's office invalidated about 12,000 signatures, putting the total count below what is needed by about 500. The Maine Superior Court in June agreed with the Secretary of State's decision. On July 1st, the state Supreme Court heard oral arguments regarding the paperwork that 4 petitioners did not properly fill out. Protect Girls Sports argued that the Secretary of State should not invalidate the signatures collected by those 4 people. The court sided with the Secretary of State, saying in part, as a result of the Secretary's proper invalidation of the signatures collected by these 4 circulators, the petition fell below the constitutional threshold for an initiative petition to be submitted to the voters of Maine. Attorneys for the Protect Girls Sports initiative responded, saying, "We are disappointed in the ruling and are reviewing it further." We, of course, will break this further down for you today. We'll keep you updated as we learn more right here and online. Today, we are also learning more about specifics on the convention Maine Democrats plan to hold as they work to find a replacement for Graham Plattner in the race for U.S. Senate. So on Wednesday, the party held a closed-door emergency meeting to lay out the framework for this plan. There will be 2 phases to picking a new Democratic nominee, the county-level phase and the state convention phase. According to the Waldo and Sagadahoc Democratic committees, county committees will select delegates and alternates this week. That process should be wrapped up by today. A total of 500 county delegates will be named, based on the formula used for a typical convention and estimates released by Waldo and Sagadahoc counties. Each county will get about a third of the delegates they had at the convention in May. Now, traditionally, only registered Democrats could be named delegates, but last month's primary was the first time unenrolled voters could vote in a primary election. A source who was inside Wednesday's closed-door meeting said one major piece Democrats are discussing is how to include unenrolled voters, if at all. Once the 500 delegates have been selected, they will join the 113 members of the state committee for a one-day in-person convention. We now know that will likely be held in Portland or Bangor, either July 25th or 26th. At that point, the convention attendees will hear from candidates and choose a nominee. According to the Waldo County Democrats, candidates will need 250 signatures from registered Democrats to be considered. However, for any of this to happen, Graham Plattner must hand over the official paperwork for his withdrawal from the race. That has not yet happened, but Plattner's campaign says he does plan to do that on Monday, which is the deadline to do it. 4 of the most prominent Plattner replacements considering the race have officially launched campaigns now. Candidate Nirav Shah is calling for at least 2 televised debates before Democrats choose their nominee. Phil Hirschkorn has more on the candidates.
Come November, Nirav Shah will be Maine's next U.S. Senator.
The runner-up in the Democratic gubernatorial primary, Nirav Shah, has pivoted to the Senate race, supporters giving his old campaign signs a facelift. The former Maine CDC director arguing he's the most electable Democrat in a race against Republican Senator Susan Collins.
This race is a referendum on Senator Collins and her enabling of Donald Trump's worst instincts and most harmful policies. She has had 30 years to stand up against reckless foreign wars. She has not done so. She has had ample time to stand up against Donald Trump's far-right judges and his far-wrong cabinet picks, and she has not done so.
Collins did oppose confirming Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and FBI Director Kash Patel, as well as Trump's picks for Surgeon General and U.S. CDC Director, who were then withdrawn. The 3rd and 4th place finishers in the Democratic gubernatorial primary, former State Senate President Troy Jackson and Secretary of State Shenna Bellows, announced their Senate campaigns. Both strongly embraced Graham Plattner and welcomed being his top picks for governor until the rape allegations story, when they swiftly called for Plattner to step aside. Jackson now touting endorsements by more than 50 current and former state legislators. Bellows calling attention to her standing up to Trump on voting changes and ICE deployments. Former congressional staffer Jordan Wood is in. He finished third in the Democratic 2nd Congressional District primary, with more CD2 votes than Jackson or Bellows. Wood sees himself as ideologically aligned with Plattner.
I represent a new generation of leadership, as does Graham. He's only a few years older than I am. Our commitment to anti-corruption money politics reform is very important to me. Medicare for all, universal child care, these are issues I have always campaigned on, and it's the same platform that Graham supports.
That was our Phil Hirschkorn reporting. Wood and Shaw are both following a similar path to Plattner, emphasizing that they come from outside the political establishment and are not career politicians. What has happened over the past 2 days is something Maine election officials say is highly unusual. The Maine Secretary of State's office says it is not aware of any U.S. Senate candidate withdrawing after winning a primary. There have been instances in the late 1800s and early 1900s where U.S. Senate or congressional seats had to be filled after someone resigned from office, but those happened during an active term, not in the middle of an election. Maine Republican Party leaders also say they are not aware of any similar cases. We did reach out to the Maine Democratic Party for comment. We've not yet heard back.